Alright, so we're going to start today with our next unit, Unit 4, Parallel and Perpendicular Lines and Angle Relationships. So if you look at this picture we have here, you might notice that the different parallel lines, these are the suspension bridge, you might recognize this as the Golden Gate Bridge, and you also will see some perpendicular lines. So you've got this main and then these crossing. Those make 90-degree angles, so that's perpendicular lines. So since we're going to be working with lines, we need to kind of do some review of our algebra skills. So we're going to start with that today. We have to look at those relationships that are related to linear equations. So we have to know how to find the slope of a line, we have to know what the slope of a line means, and we have to look at the equations of a line. So looking first at the slope of the line, you may recognize the rate of change. There's a change in the y over the change in the x. And then, of course, that old rise over run. That's we talked about with slopes in Algebra 1. So what do these different slopes look like and what do they mean? So let's take a look at this chart. That's we're talking about different slopes. So I want to just talk quickly about this positive slope. When it's going uphill, like you're walking up a hill, that's positive, okay? And so if you want to get out your slope review, these notes will show up on the first part of that slope review. So if you need to pause and get that paper out, you should do so now. Now we'll continue with the negative slope. So that's going downhill, like you're rolling a ball downhill. If the slope is negative, the line will look something like this. It may be a different shape exactly, but it will be going downhill. Now, the one that doesn't go anywhere, I call it the couch potato, that's a zero slope. Okay, zero. It's not rising, it's not running, it's just laying there. And then the one that goes straight down, that's the undefined. So I used to tell my algebra students that if they went out of an airplane without a parachute, splat, they would be undefined. So the vertical line has an undefined slope. So if you're looking at the line equation and your number is positive, you're going to have positive slope. If that slope number is negative, it's a negative slope. If there's no x value, that's a zero slope. It's going to be a horizontal line. And then if it's an undefined line, it's going to be the vertical line. All right, so those are what those look like. So we'll continue. We'll talk a little bit about the line equation in a minute, but first let's go ahead and take a look at these problems on this same sheet. So the first one is, hold on. Turn that off. There we go. Here we go. So now we're here. So if you're given a graph, depending on what kind of a problem you're starting with is how you solve it. So when you're given a graph, you're going to want to use the rise over run, or change in y over change in x, I guess is probably better. So the little delta sign, the little triangle, means the change in y over the change in x. So how we look at that on the graph is this. We're going to go take your point, your second point, or any point on that line, and you go straight down. And then you find your second point and you go straight over. So the number of boxes you're going to count down or up is the change in the y. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that means our change in y is 4. And then our change in x is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that would be 5. So your change in y is 4, your change in x is 5, your slope, always designated as an m, is 4 over 5. Now, you want to keep it in that form. You don't want to change it to a mixed number. You don't want to change it to a decimal. Slopes are written in fraction form because they mean the change in y over the change in x. Now this one is a positive slope because it's going up, just like we previously showed. So let's look at this other one that we have here. So now we have the change in y, so we're still going to go straight down. And then here's our change in x. Let's go straight over. Okay. Now, again, we can just count the boxes. So if we're looking at our change in y, we're going 1, 2, 3. So 3 is on top. And then in the x values, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 over 6. Now we can simplify that to 1/2, right? And we have to look at our sign because this one over here was positive. This one is going the other direction. It's going to be negative. All right, so your slope overall is negative. Now, how do you decide how to write that? Well, we started at our y and we went down. That's a negative. And then we went to the right, so we went down this way. That's our negative. And then we went to the right. That's a positive. So a negative over a positive is a negative. So you can think about that when you're doing your slope, or you can just look at the line on a graph and say, hey, that's a negative slope, negative number in front. All right? So we're going to continue on this page. So if you need to stop and write these down, go ahead. Take this off. To the next one. Now these again are our horizontal and our vertical. We know that this slope is undefined because of what we talked about with the different kinds of slope. So if this is an undefined slope, and we're done. Now the equation of this line would be x equals, looks like 1, because everywhere along this line x is 1. The y changes, x stays 1. So a vertical line is always x equals a number, the slope is undefined. Now if you have a horizontal line, our slope is 0. So m equals 0. And the way we would write this line is everything is at y equal to 4. So if it's a horizontal line, the equation is a y equals 4. There's no x value at all because x equals 0. The slope is 0. So anything times 0 is just going to be 0. So it doesn't matter what x is because y stays 4. All right, so those are the different kinds of slope lines that you might see. Now, that's if you have a graph. What if you don't have a graph? What if you have 2 points? Okay, when you're using 2 points, you're going to want to use the equation m equals, that's our slope again, right? M equals, and here we're going to use our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's the equation for a slope. Change in the y over the change in the x. So if you're given 2 points, like we're given here on number 5, just like I've always told you when we were doing the midpoint and the distance, we want to probably put these in as x's and y's. So what we can do is just underneath them write x, and then that's a sub 1. I'll just write x1, and then this is our y1. Okay, those are our coordinates. And then we go over here to the b, and this is our x2 and our y2. Okay, so if you wanted to take a look at that, now that we've labeled these, we can use our equation that we had up here. I guess it went away. Let me put it back. Which was our slope, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, still the same thing. So if we're going to calculate this, the number 5, we would go, our y is -1 minus 5 on top. And then we would have 6 minus a -2 on the bottom. Okay, so here's where your integer operations is very important. -1 minus 5 gives us a -6 on the top. And 6 minus a -2 gives us a +8 on the bottom. And then you would simplify that to be -3 over 4. All right? So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and then do number 7 on your own. So find the y2, or x1, y1, x2, y2, substitute them in, and find the slope. All right, so what you should have come up with was 2 minus -4, 2 minus a -4 over 9 minus 9. Sorry, those are ugly 9s. But 9 minus 9 is 0. So that means there's a 0 on the bottom. We can never have a 0 on the bottom. So that means that this slope is undefined. Okay? So do the same thing with number 6 below number 5 and see what you can come up with. Pause the video, do your slope. Okay? So you should have gotten 7 minus a -3 over -6 minus -11. Be very careful with your signs. So we really have a 7 plus 3 on top, that's a 10, over -6 plus 11 is going to give you a 5. So our slope here is a +2. All right? And then if we look at number 8, again on top, we're going to have -3 minus a -3. Well, that's -3 plus 0. That's 0. So it doesn't matter what's on the bottom because your slope is still going to be 0. All right? So you have a couple of special cases, the undefined and the 0, and then we had a negative and a positive slope. So you can take the time now to do your practice and continue to practice on the slope review activity. And then that would be your first activity you get signed off, and then you would go on to video 2. Please leave questions in Google Classroom or ask me in class, and we'll move on to the next video soon. Thank you.